When education started in the world. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if you're new to this channel, you're welcome. My name is Elizabeth, and consider subscribing and also ringing the bell to get notified each time we upload a new video. So let's get started. So when education started in the world, we're going to be looking at etymology. We're going to be looking at etymology is just the history of the word education. We're going to be looking at what is education, the history of education. We're going to be looking at a lot of other things, which includes is education compulsory, formal education, what is formal education, primary education, secondary education, on and on it goes. So grab a writing material, keep watching this to the very end, because you would be so full of knowledge, and we're going to practice it. We're talking about education. It's going to be something we're practicing right now, and you would learn quite a lot about it. You would know a lot about this word called education and history, and a lot of things concerning it. So it actually looks long, but it's not long. We're going to cover it really quickly, so you would see and have a good time learning and enjoying all that education is, taking advantage of that and making the most of it for ourselves and our community at large. So when education started in the world, this is etymology, and etymologically the word education is derived from the Latin word educatio. It means like to breed, it means to bring up, like you're rearing something. So it is from small to medium to big to bigger. You're just making something to be reared, to be trained, and more meaning on it down, which is related to this homonym educo, to lead for, to take out, to raise up, to and then from e, so it goes deep to explain that. So education began in prehistory as adults trained the young in the knowledge and skills that are deemed necessary in their society. In pre-literate societies, this was achieved orally and through imitation. So it means that education has its history from this kind of like situation where people were trying to pass across training, knowledge, impact from one place to the other, or let's just say from parents to child, or from people to people, and they had to invent ways. So education is as old as man, and then in pre-literate societies, this was achieved orally and through imitations. Storytelling passed knowledge, values, and skills from one generation to the next. So as culture began to extend their knowledge beyond skills that could be readily learned through imitation, formal education developed. Schools existed in Egypt at the time of the Middle Kingdom. You could read more about the kingdoms, but during the Middle Kingdom, then what is education? So what is education? I've heard people say, what is education? Really, this education we're talking about. What is education? So education is a process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. Educational methods include storytelling, discussions, teaching, training, and directed research. I really like that point, like where people can research things and on. So education frequently takes place under the guidance of educators. However, learners may also educate themselves. Education can take place in formal or informal settings, and any experience that has a formative effect on the way one thinks, feels, or acts may be considered educational. And the methodology of teaching is called pedagogy. So let's go back a bit. I really like that part that talks about learners may also educate themselves. I have another video, will education solve poverty, where I talked about autodidactism, which is self-education, how people self-educated themselves and brought about this amazing impact, which was just so explosive, and it impacted the world. So I would like you to check that one out. So education can take place in formal or informal settings, and here's the one I really enjoy the most. It says that a formative effect, anything that has a formative effect positively on what one thinks, feels, or acts, is also educational. So you can be like educating yourself on and on. It's just so interesting. And the method of teaching is called pedagogy. So let's look at the history of education. Education has its history from Plato founded the academy in Athens, the first institution of higher learning in Europe, and the city of Alexandria in Egypt, established in 330 BCE, became the successor to Athens as the intellectual cradle of ancient Greece. So there, the great library of Alexandria was built in the 3rd century BCE. European civilization suffered a collapse of literacy and organization following the fall of Rome in CE 476. So in China, Confucius from 1551 to 1479 BCE of the state of Liu was the country's most influential ancient philosopher, whose educational outlook continues to influence the societies of China and neighbors like Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. So after the fall of Europe, the Catholic Church became the sole preserver of literate scholarship in Western Europe. The school established cathedral schools in the early Middle Ages as centers of advanced education. In Europe, there was a new age of scientific and intellectual inquiry and appreciation of ancient Greek and Roman civilizations. Around 1450, Johannes Gutenberg developed a printing press, and this printing press allowed works of literature to spread more quickly. So this is a point that is good to take note of, how education began, the history of how it spread and became what it is today, that we all are appreciating and enjoying the important benefits of education. So in philosophy, religion, arts, and sciences, they spread out across the globe. So missionaries and scholars also brought back new ideas from other civilizations, as with the Jesuits' China missions, who played a significant role in the transmission of education, of knowledge, science, and culture between China, Europe, translating works from Europe like Euclid's Elements for Chinese scholars and the thoughts of Confucius for European audiences. So the Enlightenment saw the emergence of a more secular educational outlook in Europe. Now, is education compulsory? So a right to education has been recognized by some governments and the United Nations. So in most regions, education is compulsory up to a certain age. And in most countries today, full-time education, whether at school or otherwise, is compulsory for all children up to a certain age. And then due to this, the proliferation of compulsory education combined with population growth, UNESCO has calculated that in the next 30 years, more people will receive formal education than in all of human history thus far. I think that is so amazing. So just imagine a world where like a lot of people, if possible, like everyone is educated, it's going to be so rich in ideas, in productivity, in so many things. So that's just so amazing, this research, this discovery. So let's look at formal education. What really is formal education? So formal education occurs in a structured environment whose explicit purpose is teaching students. Usually, formal education takes place in a school environment with classrooms of multiple students. They are learning together with a trained and a certified teacher of the subject. Very important. So the teacher must be trained, the teacher must be certified and good in the subject the teacher is handling for the students. I guess this is the type of education most of us are used to, the formal education. Most school systems are designed around a set of values or ideals that govern all educational choices in that system. So such choices include curriculum, organizational models, design of the physical learning spaces like the classrooms, the student-teacher interactions, methods of assessments, class size, educational activities, and much more. So let's go to, so this is still under formal education, and this is primary. Even though in some schools, like I myself, I did pre-primary or nursery or kindergarten, or in different areas it's called different things. So that is not here, but it's just also one of the first few classes that children very young that start from school go through. You might have gone through it, a lot of people have gone through it. So this is primary. And then primary, or it's also called elementary education, it consists of the first 5 years to 7 years of formal structured education. Like in my school, it consists of 6 classes, but once you do, because of the way my school was arranged, the 6th class was kind of irrelevant because they take you a class ahead, and it was very great. So I did only 5 classes. But depending on the school structure, some people do 6 classes, those kinds of things, which is also okay. It's also great. And then, although this varies between and sometimes within countries, globally around 89% of children aged 6 to 12 are enrolled in primary education. Actually, that's true. When I was in primary 1, I was 6 years old. Amazing. So in primary education, and this proportion is rising, some education systems have separated middle schools with the transition to the final stage of secondary education taking place at around the age of 14. So schools that provide primary education are mostly referred to as primary schools or elementary schools. Then primary schools are often subdivided into infant schools and junior school. Secondary education. The secondary education has a longer history in Europe, and this is where grammar schools or academic dates from as early as the 16th century. So in the form of public schools, fee-paying schools, or charitable educational foundations, which themselves date even further back. Secondary education in the United States did not emerge until 1910. And with the rise of large corporations and advancing technology in factories, which required skilled workers, in order to meet this new job demand, high schools were created with a curriculum focused on practical job skills that will better prepare students for white collar or skilled blue collar work. So this proved beneficial for both employers and employees, since the improved human capital lowered costs for the employer while skilled employees received higher wages. So secondary school education has a longer history in Europe, where grammar schools or academics dates from as early as the 16th century in the form of public schools, fee-paying schools, or charitable in educational foundations, which themselves date even further back. So it was good to have a review of that again. So this is the curriculum, and informal education. A curriculum is a set of courses and their content offered at a school or university. So we've covered formal education, and formal education make use of the curriculum, and even in our universities or colleges they make use of curriculum. So what is a curriculum and why do they make use of it? So that is exactly what we're going to be finding out here. So in formal education, a curriculum is a set of courses and their content offered at a school or university. And as an idea, curriculum stems from the Latin word for race course, referring to the course of deeds and experiences through which children grow to become mature adults. A curriculum is prescriptive and is based on a more general syllable which merely specifies what topics must be understood and to what level to achieve a particular grade or standard. So the summary of what a curriculum is just pretty simple, and that is, a curriculum is just telling you what topics you would learn or what topics would be taught and to what grade you would achieve a particular goal or standard. That is just it for a curriculum. So an academic discipline is a branch of knowledge which is formally taught either at the university or through some other such methods. So each discipline usually has several subdisciplines or branches, and distinguishing lines are often both arbitrary and ambiguous. Example of broad areas of academic disciplines include the natural sciences, mathematics, computer science, the social science, humanities, and applied science. Although they are broad, they can still be studied, understood, and highly impactful. So educational institutions may incorporate fine arts as part of K-12 grade curricula or within majors at colleges and universities as electives. The various types of fine arts are music, dance, and theater, and curriculum varies from nation to nation, whether you're in the US or you're in Europe or Canada or Africa or any other part in the world. Education varies. This is a general overview of education. So studies from the United States suggest that the quality of teachers is the single most important factors affecting students' performance. Actually, I do agree with this a lot, 100%. I do. Your teachers matter a lot, most especially if you're a science student. You would understand what I mean by that, and I guess it's applicable for all as well. So, and that countries which score highly on international tests have multiple policies in place to ensure that the teachers they employ are as effective as possible. Now we are going to tertiary. Wow, we're almost done already, and that is higher learning. Like the higher education is also called tertiary, the third stage or the post-secondary education, and is the non-compulsory educational level that allows the completion of a school such as high school or secondary school. And the tertiary education is normally taken, and it includes undergraduate and postgraduate education as well as vocational, educational, and training. Colleges and universities mainly provide tertiary education collectively. These are sometimes known as tertiary institutions, and individuals who complete tertiary education generally receive certificates, diplomas, or academic degrees. Collectively, these are sometimes known as tertiary institutions, and individuals who complete tertiary education generally receive certificate, diplomas, or academic degrees. So it was worth it going over it again. Now, what is vocational? Because I want this to contain basically, like, I wanted to say everything, but a lot, let me just use the word, so much of what we are into in the world today. So we've understood so far that education is not just when in the classroom. In fact, in pre-literate places, when classrooms were yet to be introduced, education still existed because they had to pass values, knowledge, and skills across, and in order to do that, they had to devise means. So although this is not a formal kind of learning, is worth it considering. So keep following as we dive into this. So we have vocational education, and this is like a form of education which is focused on direct and practical training for a specific trade or craft. Vocational education may come in the form of an apprenticeship or internship, as well as institutions teaching courses such as carpentry, agriculture, engineering, medicine, architecture, and the arts. And then things like vocation includes, sometimes it's not so formal per se. It could be something just like tailoring, it could be something just like carpentry, it could be something just like anything, agriculture, fishery, that doesn't really require a formal setting or situation. Some people acquire these skills and they use it and they make the most success they can in their lives. Then we have special. So let's consider this. Now, in the past, those who were disabled were often not eligible for public education. So children with disabilities were repeatedly denied an education by physicians or special tutors. These early physicians, people like Itard, Seguin, Howe, Garadet, oh my goodness, these are great names, trust me, set the foundation for special education today. That's really applaudable, amazing. And they focused on individualized instruction and functional skills. So in its early years, special education was only provided to people with severe disabilities, but more recently it has been open to anyone who has experienced difficulty learning. So this is so exciting how education has improved and is still improving, and it's able to accommodate, everyone. This is so great. I watched a video about the Bill Gates Foundation. He was talking about what he did, yes, and what he's doing. I just thought of mentioning it, how he has cut down the number of children dying yearly, before they reach the age of, I guess, 2 or 5, before they reach some of these little ages. Little age, I said, but before they reach this age, 10% of children all over the world died. But now the statistics has dropped to 5%, and I thought that is amazing, that is applaudable. So just reading this reminded me of that, and I thought of sharing it. So we should look for what we can do to provide solutions to the problem in the world, and education can help us out in doing that. So alternative. So considered alternative today. Most alternative systems have existed since ancient times. After the public school system was widely developed, beginning in the 19th century, some parents found reasons to be discontented with the new system. So alternative education developed in part as a reaction to perceived limitations and failings of traditional education. So a broad range of educational approaches emerged, including alternative schools, self-learning, homeschooling, and on-schooling. Then indigenous education refers to the inclusion of indigenous knowledge, models, methods, and content within formal and non-formal educational system. So often in a post-colonial context, the growing recognition and use of indigenous education methods can be a response to the erosion and loss of indigenous knowledge and language through the process of colonialism. So furthermore, it can enable indigenous communities to reclaim and revalue their languages and cultures, and in so doing improve the educational success of indigenous students. So let's look at informal learning. It's worth considering. We've already considered formal learning. We went to vocational and other things that was good that we noted or knew. So now we're coming to informal learning. So what is informal learning? So informal learning is one of the three forms of learning defined by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Informal learning occurs in a variety of places, such as at work, at home, through daily interactions and shared relationships among members of society. For many learners, this includes language acquisition, cultural norms, and manners. So in formal learning, there is often a reference person. In informal learning, there is a reference person or peer or experts to guide the learner. In the late 19th century, education through play began to be recognized as making an important contribution to child development. Education through recreation is the opportunity to learn in a seamless fashion through all of life's activities. So the concept has been revived by the University of Western, and then it's also a method used to teach medicine to students. I think it's also a good tactic in learning, like play reading something, play learning something. I also do it myself, most especially if it's something very, very serious, or if it's something I really, really need to know in a short time. Instead of holding on to the anxiety and the tension, I just turn it into a play. I know some other people that do that, so I guess it works. Yes. So let's look at self-directed learning. As you can see, we're almost done. It was worth it for the wait. So autodidactism is a term used to describe self-directed learning. One may become an autodidact at nearly any point in one's life. So this is just like the beauty in education, the beauty in studying. Education is light. With education, we can do so much in our life, in our communities, in our society, and also in the lives of other people. So let's feel inspired, let's feel motivated to study. Let's just study and let's just keep studying. So let's look at some autodidacts like Abraham Lincoln, Michael Faraday, Charles Darwin, Thomas Edison, George, Frank, Leonardo, on and on. These are people that are very, very admirable. These are people that have not given up on themselves. These are people that have learned their story bring out a fortune for the world. They never gave up. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing on, and it's inspiring to just, like, let me go back. So look at their names well. Try and check more, find out more about them. It would really inspire you to study. Look at what this person did. Look at this person. I can remember the story of some of them here. They were giving up. They couldn't learn. You wouldn't learn. Look at how on your own. It's amazing. It's like endless. So just search more about them and learn more. So we've reached the end finally. So education is also becoming a commodity, no longer reserved for children. Adults need it too. Learn and keep on studying. Thank you for watching this video. Like this video, share this video with your friends. Of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch up with you next time. Thank you so much. Till next time.